Welcome everyone to today's weekly web chat. I'm Darcy Bakkegaard and I'm back with Mr. John Sessler talking about playful learning with media. If you haven't already, the first video in this series kind of sets up the playful learning mindset as well as outlines how to use media to spark and model. So feel free to check out that video. But just to get us in that mindset, John, will you just remind us, what is playful learning with media? Why is this so important?
Of course, and thanks for having me back, Darcy, and thanks for joining us again, everyone. So let's do a quick recap of this playful learning concept. And I bring back this quote from Kathy Hirsch-Pasek and Roberta Michnik-Galinkoff, that playful learning is really this intersection between free play and guided play. And that guided play being the aspects where children have the autonomy over their play, but there is adult guidance. So you are setting up the environment, the materials, and you have a learning goal in mind or an objective for your learners. And for some of our teachers of older students, this concept around connected learning may be even more resonant. And it's this idea that you are supporting learners to make connections across content or subject areas. You're engaging learners in a combination of the digital and non-digital text and media, everything from the printed text to images to the digital content, the videos, the apps, really taking advantage of the full range of pathways for learners and helping those learners connect their own passions and curiosities to the content and, of course, their cultural context. Bringing their lives from outside the classroom into the classroom and helping families connect some of the learning that's happening in your classroom to what's going on in their home environments and helping to extend that learning beyond the walls of the classroom. So I really see these ideas of playful learning and connected learning coming together hand in hand. Of course, it looks different for our earliest learners than it would for upper elementary, middle, and high school. But here's a simple equation I came up with for these playful and connected learning experiences, and it starts with that meaningful content, the traditional and more digital text or media that we provide our learners. And I know you take so much time and care to curate for your learners. And then we add in the component of the intentional media and technology integration. So how are we connecting that media to the learning objectives? How are we finding ways for the learners to question that media, to have conversations about that media? And then we add that final addition to this equation, and it's the hands-on exploration. So going back to the idea of connected learning, bringing those experiences into the classroom where learners really get to play with these concepts through the materials and the opportunity that you provide. And these three in concert provide these playful and connected learning experiences.
I really like how simple and elegant this equation is. It's a great reminder too that everything, and we talked about this last time, that everything starts with your content. What are your objectives? What are the skills and objectives that our students are supposed to come away with?
Really, with that idea of playful learning, again, it's that intersection of the free play and the guided play. Guided play being where research has shown that the learning is really most effective. So we are providing that playful learning guided play experience by having these hands-on opportunities for our learners.
Last week, we talked about sparking and modeling. So what are we talking about today as part of this playful and connected learning with media?
And this is really the how. It's that first and second part of that equation, the content and then the how of the integration of the content. So with this idea of spark and model, that media can be used as a way to be a launch pad for learners to investigate these concepts. It's a way for learners to start asking questions about the concepts, to asking questions about the media itself. And then modeling is a great opportunity to find ways the characters in media or the imagery in media is modeling these concepts or modeling behaviors or skills that we want our learners to adopt. So we went over that last webcast, and then this one, we're really going to explore these ideas of exploring and creating with media. So going deeper with a video clip or even printed text or images to explore and begin to develop some research questions perhaps. And what are the opportunities for creation? Whether it's being inspired by that media or actually creating with the media, but really digging deeper into these concepts through the hands-on experiences.
As you said that, I got this image in my head of, you know, that spark, using media to spark kind of sets us on a journey, pushes us down this path. And then as we learn and we're experiencing things modeling, we're going further down that journey. And the path might branch and split. And as those students go on, now they have the concept, they've gotten some key ideas from it, and now we're letting them a little bit looser and they're exploring. This is part of that guided play for them. And they're gonna go down the path and get deeper into their journey with this content.
That's right, Darcy. So let's explore this. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to provide some ideas for different pieces of content. And then we're going to think through some ways that you could move into that next phase of actually creating. And again, as I mentioned in the first webcast, there's overlaps to all of these approaches between the spark and model, explore and create, and then in our later webcast of the document and share. So you'll hear me using those words kind of as overlapping terms.
Sure.
Explore for media to be a way for learners to investigate and research a topic, concept, or idea more deeply, and then to create with media and digital tools to support the creativity and children's expression. The expression of the ideas or for them to demonstrate their knowledge. So let's begin with one of my favorite PBS Kids programs, which is Daniel Tiger. And we'll start with our earliest learners here. But as many of you know, if you work with early learners, Daniel Tiger's a wonderful series for exploring social emotional learning, exploring feelings. And we also have these great live action component of an animated show. So you'll see an image there from The Nature Hike, which is a live action interstitial from Daniel Tiger. I'm just going to show us in PBS Learning Media, we have a wonderful collection of Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. And here on the left-hand side, you'll see the different themes, topic areas, and the one that I had the image from on our slide deck was about exploring emotions. And as I mentioned too, those interstitials are embedded into this collection. So not only are you watching the habits of mind or the behaviors modeled, there's that term again, modeled in the content, but then you're actually seeing how children are embodying some of these ideas through the live action interstitials. So great opportunity to explore these ideas at a deeper level, from the animated characters to the live action content, and really start asking questions about what resonates with your learners. And then maybe you're going from that spark phase to the explore and create phase. So we're going from our rug time to an actual hands-on activity. Perhaps it's even, Darcy, I think this would resonate with you, some type of theater activity or storytelling activity where they're acting out their emotions. You're giving them some scenarios to think about, some ways to navigate these different emotions that they're seeing in the clips and using some of these strategies. So this PBS Learning Media collection from Daniel Tiger has those strategy songs and the video clips, but then it also has some great activities for your learners to explore these ideas at a deeper level.
And then you can take that as they're exploring at a deeper level. Yes, now they go in to do those stations. There are some hands-on activities where they're exploring, maybe with or without these videos. Now they're starting to explore these emotions. I spoke to Michelle Garman last week about social emotional learning, and we talked quite a bit about the beauty of Daniel Tiger, but about now students exploring their own emotions. Like, how do you show when you're angry? How do you show and express when you're frustrated or happy or sad? And getting them to self-reflect into what they're doing. So lots of opportunities for using media to help start a hands-on activity for the students to explore a concept deeper.
And if we think about going one step further than just, of course, consuming that media, but of course, creating with the media or embodying some of that media or playing with it, you know, we talk about showing emotions on our faces, but let's stand up. Let's start embodying those emotions with our bodies. What does it look like to be mad or sad or frustrated? And then,
let's
of course,
do that with some tools that help create some content. Michelle shared that they did Flipgrid videos,
yes.
And each student created an example of what they do when they get mad and how they handle that. And so then all the students had created their own expression of this concept, also using media, but you wouldn't have to use video media. There's all kinds of ways to do that. But then she had another resource that she could use this series of student created videos to spark new conversations, or for the kids to explore more deeply all of the different ways that we deal with how we handle being angry. So just so many options there for, and like you said, again, everything's kind of weaving in and out and overlapped, but some great options for exploring with kids.
That's right. And I think, you know, the modeling, as I said, and as you just mentioned, the overlap of the modeling comes into play here with seeing those characters act out their emotions, and just some really great strategies then for thinking about how to create with those concepts in mind from the Daniel Tiger episodes. So let's move on to some content for our early elementary learners. We think about the science inquiry practices a lot at PBS Kids because, especially in our science shows, we have a framework for producers and actually provide educators with content to give experiences for learners to explore these inquiry practices at a deeper level, to play with them. So here's just a graphic of the inquiry practices. And now we're going to look at some of the content and then the next stage of actually creating with that content.
I love that this slide, this graphic, can become a piece of media that is used also for this process of exploring. So learning this science inquiry process might be a skill that you're wanting students to develop. So this simple infographic might be the piece of media that you're using to spark that conversation. This could even be the piece of media that is at stations, you know, cutting up this piece of media, and at different stations, students are exploring what that step in the science inquiry process really involves and what it looks like. So just a reminder that that media that you're using to spark, model, explore can really come from anywhere. And this is just such a cute, fun graphic that I could see teachers using this as part of a lesson in and of itself.
That's right. And coming back to this too. So if you are exploring one or two of the practices in the centers and, you know, coming back to rug time to wrap up your lesson and actually helping learners point out what ones of the practices they were developing during their activities. So let's look at another one of our PBS Kids shows that explores science concepts. This is Ready, Jet, Go, where Jet and his friends explore outer space and the solar system. And in this particular clip, Jet thinks he's exploring Mars, but he and his friends are actually somewhere else. That's a great setup for previewing the clip. And now let's play it.
Will we see more living things? Whoa! Who is this guy? There's all kinds of life on Mars. Let's approach him carefully. Hello?
So this is a great place to pause the clip. You could ask your learners if they have any predictions of what this alien form is. You could ask them if it looks like anything that they've ever seen. Now, of course, here living in the Midwest, we may not equate that to something we've seen.
Right.
Now let's keep playing.
And by hello, I mean greetings. My name is Jet. Jet. I am a visiting alien from another planet. And this is my alien pet, Sunspot. Fist bump? Ouch!
So I also showed this part of the clip because you may not think that the science show from PBS Kids would also weave in the social emotional components. But of course, that is embedded in all the PBS Kids programming. So this could also be a really fun opportunity to practice our greetings. And how do we greet an alien life form or someone that we've never met? So this clip could be used for learners to go off and actually create some stage pictures, or we call them tableaus in the theater world. What does it look like when you meet an alien life form? What would your face look like? What would your body look like? Practice with your words, how you would greet that alien life form. But then also worth getting in those science concepts of making predictions as we're watching this clip, making observations. In the end of the clip, Jet and his friends realize that they're actually in the deserts of Arizona and not on Mars, based on our observations we're making of some of the life forms. But just an interesting way to start thinking of using these clips where you don't even need any materials. You can just have your learners start acting out some of these concepts and start thinking about the questions they might ask and explore at a deeper level.
So many different opportunities. That's a great reminder, John, that the power of media is really limitless, and it all comes down to how you, the teacher, where you choose to focus the kids. It's what you said, it's that guided learning experience, that guided play. So this one video could be used to do, how do we talk to strangers? How do we introduce ourselves? Or you can talk about the scientific process. You could use this same video to talk about ecosystems.
That's right.
And what different organisms do we expect to find? So this is not Mars, it's the desert. Okay, so now we're going, like Jet, you're going to be explorers into different ecosystems, and we're gonna figure out what types of life forms belong in different ecosystems. So this one video could be used as part of the exploration of so many different learning concepts, just depending on how you shift that focus for your kids.
Right, and how you set up the clip and what knowledge goals, learning objectives you have for the use of this clip. So that is Ready, Jet, Go. And I move on to another science show on PBS Kids, which is The Cat in the Hat. Knows a lot about that. And I'm sure you're all familiar with The Cat in the Hat and Dr. Seuss's character. And I pull up this particular resource from PBS Learning Media, which takes us to the Cat in the Hat collection. And this 11-minute clip is all about building bridges. And Nick and Sally learn that they need to build a bridge to help a dragon get across the moat. And not only are they learning about structures, but they're also learning about properties of materials. What kind of materials make a strong bridge? And so what kind of different bridges are Sally and Nick exploring during the episode? Everything from drawbridges to suspension bridges. And it's 11 minutes, but you, of course, can you truncate this clip, and you'll see on the right-hand side, we have already shortened clips into more digestible sizes here, but good clip for stopping and pausing to ask questions and have conversations about property, materials, or structures, and then using that as the launch pad to go off into the learning centers and really play with these concepts. Try out different materials to build bridges. Maybe one of your centers is just exploring the properties of materials. You're exploring cotton, you're exploring popsicle sticks. You're having some opportunities for your learners to think about the materials that they'll use at another center to actually build their structure.
And that connects back to that graphic of that scientific inquiry process. So cotton might not be a great material for a bridge, but what is it good for? So we're just exploring, and they're stretching their brains to be thinking about different applications.
That's exactly it. And along with these episodes that we have the support materials that will guide you through a hands-on experience. So I'm just giving you some suggestions here, but you have a full-on lesson plan available to you where you have the learning goals already set there, and the actual activities that will provide the learners the space to explore these concepts. And going back to our idea of connected learning and bringing in multiple modalities and different ways to integrate the non-digital and digital content, we also have an app called Bridgerama, or an online game.
Cool.
So this particular game allows the student to explore the bridges and to measure out the bridges. So you see the dragon approaches the bridge.
Hooray! You're back! I need more help building bridges.
So there's ways for the learners to measure the different sizes of the options they have to build their bridge. And it really, because of the narration, this could be a center in itself where you have the learners exploring this game. It's another way to set up their actual hands-on experience with the materials that they'll be using to build their structure. And I know the access to technology may be very different from school to school, but even if you had one or two devices, again, this could be a center where two learners are on a device exploring this game together.
And this, to me, reminds me of something else that we talked about, that while this resource may be designed for a certain age level of learner, remember you as the lesson designer, again, based on what we just talked about with the Ready, Jet, Go video, depending on how you frame this, how you set it up, and what objectives you're using it for, this same piece of media can be adaptable to a lot of different age levels, depending on how you use it.
So again, great content with Cat in the Hat, exploring inquiry practices, but I also present to you the engineering design process graphic. And again, to your point earlier, Darcy, you could use this graphic as informational text alone, and is a great opportunity to explore the idea of the engineering design process. But these ideas are embedded into PBS Kids shows that have the engineering design process as a core concept. So a great show for exploring the engineering design process is Rough Ruffman. And Darcy, I don't know how familiar you are with Rough Ruffman, but really funny content. Rough Ruffman the dog. This is all online content. We do not have a PBS Kids show of Rough Ruffman, but some really great video clips and games that go along with the series. One of those being the Eye of the Hamster.
Oh, hi. Our question today is from Natasha and Sophie, who asked,
Hi, Rob. This is our hamster, Gigi.
oh, hello, Gigi.
We're pretty sure she's bored. Do you have any tips for adding some excitement to her life?
So what I love about these clips is they start with that question. And so we're already activating this habit of inquiry. We have kids their age asking the question about how we can spice up the life of our hamster, give it some fun. And so they move through the engineering design process to create an obstacle course for the hamster. So as they're watching this, you could of course pause it to have the learners ask some questions, to make some observations about the design process and the steps these girls are going through to design an obstacle course. And then it could also be a center activity where learners could watch this video on their own on the device before they engage in the hands-on exploration.
That's a great launch for project-based learning, for diving deeper. I just had an exchange with a second grade teacher whose students really want to catch a leprechaun.
Oh, yes.
We were talking, so then she and I were talking about Rube Goldberg machines. And like what Ruff Ruffman is experiencing, it's going through that engineering design process of trial and error and exploring with media. But I really like how Ruff is setting up an authentic problem. And maybe the students don't have a hamster, but maybe they have a different design challenge for a pet, a sibling, for themselves, for their school. This could be a very simple launch for all kinds of different project-based learning experiences that utilize that design thinking cycle.
Exactly. And, you know, the questions that you consider as the learners are watching this clip are really important, really, to kind of, you know, set up the structure for their next activities. So you might ask, which steps of the engineering process are they observing after you introduce them to the engineering design process wheel? And they're really starting to think about when those steps of the process are at play during the video clip. And then a question for you as educators, how or when could you use this clip in your learning environment? How could you use it during the runtime? Or maybe you choose to use it as an individual center activity, or is it a clip that you would introduce early in the week, and then by the end of the week, they would actually create their structures? To take this a step further and introduce a new form of media, we have the app, the game that goes along with the design challenge of creating a hamster obstacle course. Again, same questions could arise. Which steps of the engineering design process are you exploring? Are you practicing as you're creating your digital hamster run? Again, Darcy, it just came to mind as we're thinking about how this could be used for upper grades. You know, this game is certainly geared towards our younger students, but you could give your 9th graders, 10th graders an opportunity to play this game and think about how they might improve upon it. How might they create a digital game for younger learners to explore the engineering design process, or even for their peers to explore the engineering design process. But the goal here, after you explore the media content, after you practice some of these skills in the digital app, your real life challenge is to create an obstacle course or a playground for a stuffed animal in this case. But you could have your learners go that extra step to do a lot more research and design for a particular person, do some interviews. What would the obstacle course or playground look like for kindergartners if you're leading this for 5th or 6th graders, you know? So they could develop designs for real people, or you could just have them think through the engineering design process in their development of an obstacle course or a playground for these stuffed animals.
And I love that design challenge. I'm thinking of how many snow days and how cold it has been. And I love that idea of, well, let's design some obstacle courses, easy for me to say, and make some magic during our indoor recess time. And let's, as 4th and 5th graders, design different types of courses depending on the different grade level. So great design challenge, an authentic problem.
And what I love about activities like these that I'm sure many of you are introducing into your classrooms, they use such simple materials. I mean, materials that you can collect, the recycling materials, you know, have your students bring in some of the boxes, the egg cartons, the toilet paper tubes. So those it takes some time, of course, to collect those materials, but very easy to use materials that you're not having to buy.
And this is another great opportunity for inviting in some adults.
Yes.
Some people as you were saying that, yes, you can ask people for supplies, but there's also some great opportunity if things are a little bit more complicated or students have an idea that they actually need to build something. There are lots of moms and dads, grandparents, aunts and uncles who may be willing to come in for an hour and actually help make that happen. And so this is all about that potential. And if those students have to think through the design process and they have to problem solve, so we don't have power tools, so how are we going to create what we need to create? What are some of the resources that we do have available to us? Who can we call? So again, so many different paths in this playful learning journey that we're discussing. So many different paths that you and the students can go on, and so many different forks in the road that you can take to bring in all kinds of media, all kinds of outside guests, all kinds of Skype or video experts to help you further explore and connect, and you connect off of this great media resource.
Yeah, and I don't want to leave out our older audience, of course, and you can use these same ideas, similar activities through our Design Squad resources. Excellent digital content. This one's from Design Squad Global. We have a site that's dedicated to this, but we also have the resources on PBS Learning Media. But again, video clips of learners that will be the ages of middle schoolers that you work with, and even 9th, 10th graders going through these design challenges and exploring the engineering design process. There are lesson plans for you to lead these same design challenges in your own classrooms. There are digital games to practice some of the design skills, just like we saw in the Rough Roughman app. So just another resource available at your fingertips to explore the engineering design process. And last but not least, Darcy, I want to make sure that we mention digital creation. And Scratch Junior is a phenomenal resource on PBS Learning Media and PBS Kids. It uses PBS Kids characters as a way for learners to code their own stories. And the backgrounds are available to them. The PBS Kids characters are embedded in the app. There is a bit of a learning curve, perhaps as the educator, to become familiar with the app before you introduce it perhaps to your learners. But we all know our students are using tools like this already, so they will catch on very quickly.
Yeah, I've done coding with Scratch Junior with kindergartners, first and second graders, as well as up to fourth graders now over the last year. And they are so much faster every time I do it. A kid figures out something, they'll go, "Ooh, you can," and I go, "Oh, I had no idea that you could do that." And if you do want some resources on Scratch Junior, this same video series, we have a 3-part series about coding in the classroom and some resources to help you get started coding, as well as a whole video about how to use Scratch Junior in the classroom to support different types of learning activities. So this is a great creation tool where students can actually code solutions to some of those design those problems, those challenges.
You can have your older students use the Scratch coding app.
Right.
It doesn't incorporate the PBS Kids characters if those don't resonate with them, but the same principles apply. The coding Language is very similar. And so it's just a very easy way to teach coding and to explore coding for learners, for them to create themselves in the digital space.
The sequencing skills and the problem solving
Yes.
skills that students learn through coding are unmeasurable and unbeatable. It's some of the best creative thinking and problem solving, and just that sequential thinking. There's so many things that for me, I went, oh, this is basically a different way to help students learn how to write, learn how to make an argument, and certainly learn how to problem solve and have to figure things out.
I also see a good opportunity for the learners to code some of what the clips that we watched earlier.
Yeah.
They could extend those clips into, you could pause the clip and say, okay, now you're going to code the next part of the story. What are your predictions about what are going to happen? How do you want the narrative to play out? And now let's code it. I mean, just so many different ways you can see the video clips connecting with the non-digital activities, and then these creation-based activities that may be non-digital or digital. And I'm sure you have a long list, all of you educators out there, of other creation apps or digital tools that you use. So just think of the different ways that you can connect those to the non-digital activities, to some of the video clips that you are finding on PBS or other resources that you come across online.
So thanks so much, John.
Thank you, everyone. Have fun exploring and creating with media.